I'm actually waiting for the presenters to come in. We have got Dr. Zakiuddin Ahmed. He's going to be the first speaker of the day, and he will express his knowledge through live session. I want him to actually talk to you because the gentleman is full of knowledge of telemedicine, telehealth space around the world. He has spent, as far as I have seen him, he's been working in telemedicine, and at least we are working together for 20 years now, but he's been working in telemedicine before that. So I am honored to have Dr. Zakiuddin Ahmed, who is the director of Rifa Medical University in Islamabad, Pakistan. He is the founder of the connected health model called Raha in Saudi Arabia, which is deployed in King Saud University. And he also is the champion of patient safety in Pakistan and around the world. Dr. Zaki, big applause. Please join us. I want to introduce now Mr. Ned Thurman on the screen. You can see that. Welcome, Ned.
Thank you.
So we've got Ned Thurman. Ned Thurman has a backdrop of telemedicine, telehealth space in America. He lives in Atlanta, USA. And he's the Chief Technology Advisor for Medical City Online. Medical City Online is the company I had in UK for telehealth. And I'm privileged to have him as my CTO. He has a backdrop of delivering technology to corporate organizations, telemedicine technology. He goes there, physically checks the parameters and deploys the technology. So he's got a technological background. And I'm honored to have you, Ned today, Ned Thurman.
Thank you.
And people can see you and they can hear you. So welcome to UAE virtually.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you allowing me to come in through a video conferencing rather than 2 days on a plane.
So it's going to be a two-way interaction. By the way, as you speak to him, Ned will be able to hear, and we will have a mic circulating in the audience too as well. So we are waiting for Mr. Bud Zarowski. I think he's going to join any moment during this conversation. But may I take the opportunity, first of all, welcome Dr. Zaki. You're here today. Telehealth. How much do you know of telehealth, by the way? Can I ask one of the members of the audience? Can you have a mic here as well, please? Before I go to the panel, I want to ask one question. How much do you know about telemedicine? And if Saad can join us as well, we can rotate the mic.
Morning, everyone. So that was...
First introduce yourself, please.
Yes, my name is Sarah. I'm from Island Global Dubai. And we have this telemedicine healthcare in Dubai already. And the idea about telemedicine is actually to save time and effort for patients instead of moving to hospitals or sometimes for urgent cases. They can actually check their health or follow up with the doctors instead of going, and making the effort to go to meet the doctor.
So the concept is already here and it's in practice.
Yes.
Okay. So I want to now involve Dr. Zaki in this. Dr. Zaki, first of all, can you just give your take on how do you think telemedicine can change healthcare for society? Just give us a quick wrap with your experience. Can the telemedicine help healthcare or make it different?
So, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak on telemedicine, which has been my passion for over 23 years, as Sohail mentioned. And so tele means distance, right? The meaning of tele is distance. So telemedicine is medicine over a distance. That's as simple as that. Telemedicine has been there for over 25, 30 years. Actually, much more than that, historically. But in practical terms, in the US and in some parts of the Western world, telemedicine has been practiced for over 25, 30 years. Teleradiology, obviously, teledermatology, these are the low-hanging fruits, which are easy, where a patient-doctor interaction is not needed as it is in other areas. We have been benefiting from telemedicine in typical hub and spoke models, which means hubs are these tertiary care centers, super specialized centers where you have senior doctors, and spokes, which are in rural areas or smaller clinics. So the patient actually does not need to go to the large hospitals. The health system itself, all over the world pretty much, is not a very efficient system, especially in the US. So this model of patients not burdening the larger hospitals and going to these smaller remote clinics is an efficient way of utilizing the resources which are scarce. So telemedicine works. One of the hospitals, a group of hospitals in the US, which had more than 110 million conversations last year, had 50% or more of those 110 million conversations over telemedicine. And this is a country which is highly regulated. Patients are ready to see the physicians anytime they want, but still more than 60% of hospitals in the US are using telemedicine. The US Army has been doing it for a fairly long time because they have troops all over the world, so they use telepsychiatry a lot. The NASA helped telemedicine to grow. So I think we can talk about the use cases of telemedicine and applications and who are using telemedicine, but the real tipping point which happened is that now in the US and other parts of the world, telemedicine is being reimbursed. So that was actually a major turning point. So in the last few years and this year, CNC just announced that even remote patient monitoring will be reimbursed in the US. So I think that actually takes telemedicine or connected health or digital health to the next level, where physicians and healthcare professionals and even payers, providers will be compensated for their services remotely.
I think this is a great point. Once there is a business perspective, I think the growth is vertical, not only lateral. And the point of care is reimbursable. That's a great idea. That means the business teams will come in. Before I give the opportunity for Ned, I want to introduce Mr. Bud Zorowski, who's kindly joined us. Good morning from here. I know it's your late night. It's America. Right now it's 12:30 in the morning.
Good morning. That's one thing we have in common.
Now, Ned Bud Zorowski is CEO of Medical City Online. And Bud Zorowski has a very strong credential. He is the one who set up the healthcare technology for Polycom in America. He has been the instrumental person in designing the business structure for Polycom in healthcare. And he's got a long history of deploying business structures around telehealthcare space in America. Welcome to the conversation. We have Dr. Zaki here in the panel. We have Ned Thurman, who lives in the same town as you are in Atlanta. Myself, standing here in UAE. So welcome to you, and I want to give the question to Ned. The question was, but for yourself, the question was that how can telemedicine help healthcare of a country? Can it burden it, or can it actually help? Ned, your take.
I must agree with Dr. Zaki, as he said. My background has been in telemedicine for the last about 10 years. I started in teleradiology, not really realizing that was actually telemedicine at the time. I just thought it was another service of radiology. And then I expanded that when I moved to a company which focused on stroke delivery of telemedicine. And that's when my eyes were open to telemedicine and how it can change people's lives. In rural United States, access to healthcare is very inefficient. So we were able to provide specialists, neurologists in this case, with the ability of reaching patients in rural communities by providing stroke care. They were able to evaluate the patient using video and audio after looking at their CT scans, INR, and some other important components while evaluating stroke. They could also go through the NIH stroke scale and identify whether this patient was actually having a stroke or not. The time saved between door to needle of providing the first evaluation of the patient and the initial administration of TPA, the anticoagulant, is the door to needle time. And what we saw is many times patients would have to be transported either by ambulance or helicopter, which could take any place from 45 minutes to an hour and a half. All this is affecting the brain. And we were able to get door to needle times well under an hour by providing stroke care at the patient presentation point, which is this hub and spoke model with rural communities. So I'm a very big proponent of telemedicine after seeing the stroke. My company that I work for has branched out in several other areas. We provide services in the behavioral health, which has seen a huge change in the United States in providing telemedicine services. Also in the criminal justice and inmate care, we were receiving very poor medical care. We've been able to provide telemedicine to those communities. And we're also reaching out to primary care physicians and some other areas. As Dr. Zucchi said, the remote patient monitoring is very important now in the ongoing care of patients who have been discharged from the hospital. So I see this as only continuing to grow along with e-medicine and digital care.
I think it's a great point. The patient suffering from stroke or stroke in evolution, if you understand that terminology, stroke in evolution is when time is the essence. In medicine it is. Stroke in evolution, time is actually the essence. Every person second makes a difference. Telemedicine can quickly deploy a local nurse to do TP or any kind of injection or treatment which is required. Thank you, Ned, for sharing this very valuable point. May I just take your take, not only on that, but also just touch upon the business side of things. That does telemedicine make it a business efficient case for a country, or is it a burden on the society of that country?
Thank you. And first of all, thanks for involving me in the production. I think the point is well taken, Sohail. The burden on society is not in the technology, it's in the lack of health care, in lack of delivery. So anytime a technology can improve the delivery of care or the outcomes, it's a positive for that country, that population. Telemedicine is not really new. It's been around for quite a while. It was in the late 1990s, when telemedicine was integral in all the remote areas of Alaska, northern states in the US, and even internationally. And the only limiting factor was the bandwidth, or how do you get the technology to the last mile. Now that we've progressed with the technology, it's just opened up a host of opportunity for bringing care and basic care to populations in need. And not just in the area of primary care, but critical things like stroke and other items. So yeah, I'm going to have to say it's not a burden at all. It's probably an asset. It's an equity. In a business term, it's probably more of an equity, a capital equity for a country or a region.
How was your experience with the Polycom regarding the healthcare efficiency, cost efficiency?
Well, the cost efficiency with technology has improved greatly. We're now on the internet. Early on, it was pretty much T1 lines, ISDN, very costly, especially bringing it to the broadband to the last mile of care. So with the internet, you can just imagine the efficiencies when it's just ubiquitous everywhere around the world. Right now we're at 4G. We're starting to populate the airways with 5G. And to give you an example from a business standpoint, 5G, as far as latency is concerned, which is delay, is less than a millisecond. 4G is anywhere between 50 and 100 milliseconds. The capacity of 5G that's coming down the pike is 10 gigabytes. And the 4G is in the megabyte territory. So we're going to be able to do so much more efficiently, so that the endpoints or the equipment are not going to be expensive and prohibit implementing. So now all these ideas about care and delivery care can actually come about. And I'm sure both Ned and Dr. Zaki have real world examples of how that's happening today.
Thank you, Brad. We'll take one more round of questions and we'll open the house to the audience. Dr. Zaki, regarding the implementation of telemedicine, every society is not the same. Some are receptive, some are resistant to telemedicine. What is your experience in regarding implementing telemedicine? What are the barriers to cross? You can briefly sum up from your experience. And the same question to the rest of the audience speakers. The barriers to telemedicine deploying in a society.
Okay. It's a great question. And I remember I was presenting at a conference in Washington for the Health Congress 13 years ago. And, a huge audience of CEOs of hospitals across North America. And when I finished, one of the CEOs stood up and asked the same question. And he said that, Dr. all what you said is too good to be true. This is great. Then why are we, lagging? Why the adoptability is not as good as should be? And I think that there are a couple of reasons. Because if you look at telemedicine, and if you look at the history of telemedicine, it's just a no-brainer. Patients are adolescents, patients, travel, they don't have money, resources are scarce. It makes common sense to connect patients and physicians remotely. So, I've been doing some work on that as well. And there are a couple which stand out, very openly. And as a physician, myself, I can tell you, and having worked in this space for so many years, trying to convince the healthcare system officials and physicians, I saw that the biggest barrier was the physicians themselves. And I say it through experience. It has taken, so I'm from Pakistan, I work in this region as well. The physicians themselves, they resist change. The culture of healthcare system, which is primarily controlled by physicians, is still, unfortunately, a physician-centric healthcare system as opposed to a patient-centric system. Physicians control the system. Physicians do not like change. Physicians enjoy their territories, and they have been resisting telemedicine or technology, if you can call that. I think that's the number one, and we can talk more offline or in this conversation. The second, obviously, is regulation. So if you look at even the West, as I said, telemedicine has been there for many years, but only in the recent past, there's a couple of years, reimbursement was allowed. And if you look at, UAE, where we're sitting, I've been, presenting at Arab Health and many conferences. This is like third in the last 1 month. And we're still grappling with the issue of whether we can allow video or video consultations, whether it's allowed or not. So I think these are the two major barriers. Technology is off the shelf. Technology was never an issue. When we started, I was talking to the panelists yesterday when we were preparing, and I told them the first project that we did 18 years, 17 years ago was on ISDN lines. And we had 3 ISDN lines, which gave us 384 kilobits per second. And we were doing thousands of conversations or consultations between that actually is the largest city and smaller villages or rural areas in Sindh province. So technology has never been a major issue, and especially today when you're talking about 4G and 5G. So the last mile has been covered. I think these are the two major barriers which still we are struggling with all over the world.
I think it's a wonderful point. The physicians themselves, we, nurses, doctors, healthcare workers, they have to change. And then the regulations. But I tell you what, there was a time when we used to email people and then call them, did you get my email? Just to confirm that was the time, and here we are sitting, we're talking of 5G as Bud just said. So we don't have to call and say, well, did you get my email? That was the thing when they say, yes, wow, how could you do that? Now we're talking something different. So may I take, Ned, your response?
I would tend to agree with Dr. Zaki. My only experience was in the beginning, we did have challenges with the technology side. And in rural US where we were working, there were a lot of problems getting quality networks into some of the smaller rural communities. So we were challenged by first technology, then we were challenged by reimbursement, which has now gone away. Technology problems have gone away. Reimbursement for the most part is going away. Then regulation, credentialing, and state-to-state capability of providing of providers able to access across state lines. And then the fourth one we dealt with was physician acceptance. And one of the perfect examples we had was a behavioral health center where a physician was driving a couple of days a week. It was taking him 4 hours to go from one city to another to treat patients. This was an 80-year-old physician who was still driving several hours a day to treat patients. And it was a question of whether he would accept this new telemedicine concept. And I'll tell you, out of all of the physicians on staff, he happened to be the oldest, and he was the one that jumped on the technology the quickest. And I was amazed. So it was my thought that younger physicians would accept it more rapidly. In this case, he didn't have to drive anymore. He jumped on this opportunity and said, this is what I want to use every day. Said, I don't want to drive anymore. I want to even treat patients in my own town using this capability. So I think the final one we're challenged with is physician acceptance. We still deal with that every day. Most of the regulation has gone away, and that's what we are challenged with when we're on a day-to-day basis with our customers.
I think you're doing a great answer. The answer actually lies in the comment as well. If you tell the younger physicians to take it faster, everybody will take it. If you put younger, the word younger to it, that could be a motivation for everybody to say, well, I can be young, and that can pull people into the net. So, but what do you think? Do you agree with the previous comments, or do you have to add something to it?
Oh, I absolutely do. They're very thorough. One item I would add, as far as challenges that we're overcoming, is training and familiarization. It's very common in medical school not to train with practical stuff, how to run a practice, how to talk to people. It's very good at science and STEM. And I think we're at the point now where familiarization with the technology is such that we're not even thinking about the technology anymore. We're now able to perform medicine. Before, we had to think technology alongside of delivery. And I think that's changing. So there's a big educational part of this that we have as an opportunity going forward.
Right. I think technology, physician, and then regulations, financial issues. And there are so many others which are coming up. Sometimes the patients can also find it. The security issues. They say that, will my data be secure? Sometimes the hardware availability.
That's true.
These barriers are, again, as Nat said, they're no more. And the technology is going to be invested. The good technology is that you don't feel. And telemedicine soon is going to be the medicine. People are not going to call it telemedicine. They will say that's medicine, the young generation of doctors. I want to open the house for questions for 5 minutes, if that's okay. And maybe have a mic rotating between the audience, and we'll take 2 questions. Yeah. So please introduce yourself, and if you can.
So, my name is Dr. Lee from Medical Center. Yes, my concern is to know about telemedicine. Though I don't have any questions like that because I don't know much about this. But just what about the rights and responsibilities of the patients when we are talking about telemedicine? So this question.
Sorry, rights and responsibilities.
Yeah. Because we are sitting somewhere, and also second question, like now starting online shopping, and the markets are closing in Canada, it's in here. So will it be replacing somehow, like with telemedicine coming, we are reducing our hospitals?
There are two parts to the question. First part, Dr. Zaki, if you can address the medical profession, and I'll address the second part, being medical profession. So first part.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. So rights and responsibilities of patients. There are two ways that medicine is done, essentially. One is the patients are presented to a senior doctor on the other side by a new doctor or a healthcare professional, which is a nurse or a technician. And the second is the B2C model, which I'm sure so will talk about. In the B2C model, the patients are shopping, as you said. They can pick up the phone, they can look up the doctor which who they want to have a consultation with, and then they can start based on the program. So I think the roles and responsibilities of the patients in this scenario would be probably to come up with the relevant information at the right time, rather than just sit in front of the screen and start a consultation without being prepared. Because telemedicine obviously is done in a slightly different way, and time is of essence. So the physician would like to have as much information and as relevant information as possible, whichever EMR or telemedicine software you're using. So I think that's number one, that the patient needs to be prepared, and whether he or she is presenting himself or through a healthcare professional. So preparedness is, I think, of essence. Otherwise, the consultation cannot take place because there is a limitation. So that's one. The second is, if you look at telemedicine, it's not different from regular medicine. So it is just that the doctor and the physician are saying the same. So we've been promoting the concept of empowered patients. And that concept means that the patients need to take responsibility of their own disease management completely or wellness. And that means that patients need to be part of the decision-making process, which again means that whenever a physician or any other healthcare professional gives any kind of advice to the patient needs to ask questions rather than just listen and then go back. He or she needs to participate, and that's where the participatory medicine concept came into being, that the patients need to participate. So I think that's another responsibility of the patients, that rather than sitting on the back seat just receiving instruction from physicians and then going back and then thinking, okay, how do I do it? They need to get involved, they need to participate, and they need to also actually interact with patients who have similar diseases. So I think these are the two things which come to my mind.
So well put and said. Regarding the can doctors be replaced, perhaps that was the underlying question of your question. When photocopier machines became automated, that did not cut jobs. It made somebody else looking after that technology, that how can we make the machine automated? There was a technician required to make sure the machine works. So the occupational natures change. In medical professions, one thing is going to happen for sure. Please be warned. Artificial intelligence is going to change the structure of our profession. And how? Computer will ask the history. Basic history will be taken by the computer. But the critical decision making is still with the doctor. The computer cannot make a decision. So the critical decision making, doctors become more efficient. If If a doctor was able to see 6 patients in one morning, he can say, see 8 or 9, because the computer has taken the history, not only taken the history, but recorded that objectively in a tabulated form. So you can go back and look at the all 75 years old who came with mild cough from a particular postcode or area of the country in the afternoon. You can narrow down the data searching because of artificial intelligence is collecting in forms. It's already regulated and tabulated. So that means you can collect the data, use it, but again, it comes to doctors' empathy and doctors' clinical decision making to get patient on medicine. Now, if a computer says to you, look very handsome and smart, you won't feel very kind of comfortable and happy. It's computer, it's programming, it's programmed. It look my face, my eye distance, my nose, my lips, it geometrically said you're good. What if a man says, or a person, a woman says that, you look smart? This is where doctor comes in. A doctor can give the empathy to the patient. A computer cannot say, take this medicine, get better. Medical education has to change. Doctors can be replaced if they're not showing empathy, because knowledge will be replaced by computers through artificial intelligence. Doctors have to show empathy, connectivity to the patient. It's not only me who says that. Jack Ma, many other people who speak on the television, they say doctors have to become more empathetic, more clear, that yes, this is my patient now. If I just give him prescription without an eye contact, tomorrow computer can do the same. So I believe, answer to your question is, I think doctors will not be replaced. Doctors will become more efficient, will become more human, and the system will become more efficient as well. And with that, because we're running out of time, and also it's very late night in America. So, and Ned Thurman, why don't you go to sleep? And we thank you very much for your participation and hope to have you tomorrow as well. But again, I really appreciate your effort, and I think we'll see you tomorrow, all being well. So
thank you for allowing us to join you.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I think with this, we close the session. Dr. Zaki, thank you very much. Thank you for the audience, and let's close this session with this applause. Thank you.
Thank you.